lives. Romans 15:13. Now may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that you will abound in hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. God has given us hope. I try to have hope. I believe that what God promises and trust Him today, usually. How do we learn to rejoice and trust in the midst of chaos in our tiger attacks, spiritually, emotionally, and physically? How do we learn to rejoice and trust? Well, you and I need to be both a man or a woman of the Word. We need to read of others and their troubles and how they trusted God. Again, your Bible is a prep tool. It's a disaster prep tool. Okay, Romans 15:4. For whatever was written in earlier times was written for our instruction, so that through perseverance and encouragement of the Scriptures we might have hope. I guess I got to step back a little bit here and just kind of give you a little background. I've got this little washer. Mary Jean and Lynette and Vaughn and Harold know what that is. I don't know if I'm supposed to say who did it for us. With that, Mary Jean? It's fine. Elizabeth Kime came to visit here, I think it was right around towards the end of January. I think it was. And so when she's here, usually, some of us, I mean, Lynette and I have been included in it the last couple of years, but she usually likes going to eat breakfast at, what is that? The original House Pancakes, done by the U of O. And so we're sitting around the table visiting and catching up and stuff. And Elizabeth said, well, you know, I have a kind of a thing I'd like to do as kind of one of her mission project, whatever. And she said, well, I kind of bought into this thing where she bought a kit, and in that kit is a way to stamp these metal washers. And she said, what the purpose of it is to do is you come up with a word that is especially meaningful to you, or something that will remind you of your faith, or, you know, something like that. And so she said, I want you all to write on a piece of paper what word you'd like on a washer, and I'm going to give you something. I'll give you this washer. And so, you know, some of us, some had the word right away. Took me a couple, 3 days. And the word I had printed on here was persevere. Little did I know, I mean, we already had trials. The next week, I think it was, my mother hurt her back. A week later, she had a stroke. And that's amongst all of our other family things that happened. So I have it. Sometimes I think I'm not going to wear it because every time I've worn it, something bad has happened. So a lot of times I have it hanging on my medicine cabinet door, and I see it every morning and every night. Sometimes I have worn it. But it does make me wonder what this really, I'm not saying it started anything, but anyways, so much for that. So Romans 15:4, for was written in earlier times was written for our instruction, so that through perseverance and encouragement of the Scriptures we might have hope. So we don't always have time in a crisis to open our Bibles, but we should know by reading before how others have responded to crisis in their life, whether it be Apostle Paul, Peter, any of those people in Scriptures that have suffered. Job, even Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel story. We need to have a spiritual go bag. And in that go bag is testimonies both of others and of our own. Because we've all gone through things, in life. Okay, disaster number 2. Strength depleting tribulations. Yeah, the Bible's very clear. Life is made up of trouble, and trouble. Tribulation's another word for it. Jesus even said, he says, you will have tribulation. He even said it's a promise that we're going to have tribulation. May even suffer persecution. He did, and others. So Paul, again, in Romans 12:12 says we need to be persevering in the face of tribulation. Okay, survival tactic number 2. Persevering in tribulation, yeah. Or did I miss the one before? Did I get the one before? The strength of depleting tribulations? Yeah, okay. So now we're to persevering in tribulation. You can have a go bag full of $100 bills. I could have this thing full of $100 bills, and I might not survive. Giving up in any trouble or tribulation, as I said, is fatal. That's why God has given man fight or flight responses. It drives us. Do you remember in the news, I don't know how long ago it's been, a few years I think. I think it was a guy in Utah someplace. He went hiking and he got his arm crushed in a rock or stuck somehow. He couldn't get it out. He was by himself. The only way for him to survive was to cut off his own arm with a little penknife. I think they said it wasn't even that sharp. Why did he do it? Why did he cut off his own arm so that he could survive? If I remember the story right, he had children. He wanted to see his children again. I hope we don't ever face that. I don't know if I could do that or not. But, so we have to persevere in tribulation. 2 Corinthians 4:8. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not despairing. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. Hebrews 11, if you remember, lists a whole bunch of names. It's just a bunch of names in there. They were all godly followers. They included like Abel, Enoch, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, and many, many more. They all had faith and they all suffered. Winston Churchill. I went to high school, and my high school was Sir Winston Churchill. As a man and as a leader, he is revered today, I think, still, unless the woke left has somehow got a hold of him. He one time, at the beginning of the war, when Britain was in the war, they were actually losing the war. This is before the United States got involved in the war. And he had a famous speech, and one of his lines were on there, "Never, never give up." Whining, sometimes we all do that. I know I do it sometimes. Whining is contagious. "Oh, did you hear what happened to me? Oh, poor me." And then the next person you're talking to, "Oh yeah, well listen what happened to me." And they're having a kind of a pity party. But you know what? Hope is contagious too. So let's be hopeful. Spread that hope. Hebrews 12, verses 1 and 2. Says, "Therefore, since we all have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and sin which so easily entangles us. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us." Actually, the word I think they use in there, the original, I think it's Greek, is the word hupomone. How many know what that means? Do you know what the word hupomone means? I didn't either, but I looked it up. It means steadfastness, consistency, or endurance. When we go through trials, sometimes we're squeezed. We're crushed. We need to have perseverance. We all have people in our lives who have endured, again, their own tiger attacks. I know many of you have. Big ones. Bigger than I've had. Romans 5. Or did we finish reading? Yeah, we got through. Did I finish reading that? No. "Fixing your eyes on Jesus," or our eyes on Jesus, "the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God." I forgot there was 2 slides for that one. So we need to fix our eyes on Jesus. He endured the cross. He persevered more than any of us could probably do, I'm sure. Okay, Romans 5, 3 and 4. "And not only this, but we also exult in our tribulations, knowing that tribulation brings about perseverance. And perseverance, proven character. And proven character, hope." Is there another slide? No, I guess that's both there. So let me warn you, let's not be a masochist. Let's not be a Christian masochist where we say, "I'm not complete unless you hurt me, or you punish me, or you beat me." That's not what we're talking about today. It doesn't make you special because you tell somebody, "Look at all my problems." I know we do have problems, and we do need to share those. But we all know people who are kind of like that. Unless they're somehow going through some life-threatening trial, because they have a different one almost every week or once a month or whatever it might be. Let's not be like those. Trials and troubles are perseverance factories. We should celebrate our trials. Not very easy, I know. We should have grown through our trials. We need to learn something from it. That's why this process happens. If we don't learn anything from it, it won't help us in the future. Kind of like little children, like Pamela, my granddaughter. If you touch something hot, you can tell them it's hot lots of times. And they won't know it until they burn their finger or arm or whatever it might be. So we need to learn things from our trials. We should grow through it. When we handle the little trials, we will be ready for the big ones. It's pretty hard to start with a big trial and make it through. But all the trials that we face in life, we should have learned something from it, and that will help prepare us for the big ones. It doesn't make it easy, really, but it should help us to survive. Okay, disaster number 3. Resource-consuming needs. We're all very needy people. I'm not trying to make it sound like that I think that we shouldn't be needy, because we all do have needs. We all go through things. We're all going to run out of something. But what we need to worry about most is that we will run out of hope. In us and in the church even. We need to have hope in the church and in our own lives. So, we've all seen things happen in a number of years. In the midst of real or imagined disasters, people run in all directions. It doesn't even have to be a real disaster. It's just something in the news. They panic buy. They hoard things like toilet paper. We've seen that just a couple of years ago. You're driving around the city trying to find toilet paper. But there was also people hoarding toilet paper. There are people that had gone to Costco and they got 5 or 6 of those big 48 packs. Had enough in there for them for the next 2 or 3 years. But you couldn't find it in the store, or it was hard to find. People go around buying batteries, gasoline, food. Remember Y2K? 22 years ago, a little over 22 years ago. The fear was that society was going to collapse. The computers were going to, what was the big run on then? Generators. Everybody was afraid that we're going to run out of power. The generating stations or utility companies or whatever, that they were going to create chaos. You couldn't buy a generator. It caused people to move from their state and move to other states. To live out in the middle of nowhere, kind of in a survivalist atmosphere. When these things like this happen, people say the sky is falling, and they're willing to walk over anybody and anyone to get what they want, that they think that they need to survive. Then, of course, like I said earlier, you have others that say, oh, don't worry about it. It's not that bad. The government will take care of us. Let's eat, drink, and be merry. Okay, survival tactic number 3, being devoted to prayer. I'm getting down to the end of it, so if you're tired of me, I think I'll make it almost, maybe not as early as we're out sometimes, but. So we need to have emergency supplies. In a disaster, we need a way to communicate in a disaster. We need to have emergency supplies. Some. Even the government, I think they tell us, well, you should have at least, 7 days or 2 weeks or something, or 3 weeks of supplies. Some other people say you need to have 3 or 4 months. Some people take it to the place where they've got 5 or 6 years of food and things. You need to have forms of communication, like two-way radios. Your phone. A mirror, you can signal, with mirrors. That's kind of a Boy Scout thing, I think. Colored tarp. If you're trapped somewhere and you have a colored tarp, maybe they can find you. Flashlights are really important. Whistles, so you can tell people you're, stuck in a house or whatever it might be. Need to have ways to make a fire. Do you know what the SOS signal is? Morse code. It's dot, 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 dash, 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 dot, dot, dot. It's old Morse code. I don't think they even teach Morse code anymore at all. Even to the military people, I think, hardly even know that if I heard correctly. So that SOS signal is dot, 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 dash, 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 dot, dot, dot. But one of the best ways to, I guess, if you're around people, is to also yell, help.